and welcome to a slightly less professional live stream. Hello, autofocus. Sorry. Just move back a bit. There we go. Is that better? Right, it'll sort itself out in a second. Mr. Coleman is with me, Rubbish Mechanic, and I have this live stream going on. I think that's stopped now. I do apologise. It always does this on live streams for some reason, this phone. He has bought me a glass of pale cream sherry, which I am very happy about. I'm just going to bring up the comment section. Thank you, sir. There we go. I don't know if that's going to make any difference to the autofocus. It's a real strange thing with this. It sort of just doesn't really do what you want most of the time. It seems to have settled down though. So Mr. Coleman has been working on some cars today. One of them we can't talk about yet, actually.
No, we're not allowed to.
Not allowed to talk about that one. Or rather, I'm not allowing Mr. Coleman to talk about it at the moment. The other one is just gone up on the channel, so we can talk about that. I mean, it's not a problem. We can actually talk about that one. So the Row 45 V6 that went actually last week. I won't tell you where that's gone. You're going to have to wait until another couple of weeks to know who that's gone to. But I hope you'll be happy with who it's gone to. I certainly am. I think actually it's gone to a better home than I could offer it. So that's very good. So there we go. You've got the chat sort of on here, which is good. So I recently got a very nice gift. A friend of mine who used to actually work for a Rover dealership in 1989 brought me a picture of a print that was actually done. I think it was limited edition of about 2000 of pictures of the first type of Rover K series engine. They were given at the launch of the R8 214 and 216 in 1989. So that'll be going somewhere, I think. It's been water damaged at some points. Not the best quality, but you know, that's good. That's sort of the news, really. So we have some comments here, if this can actually work. Stiff Upper Lip says, hello, sirs. Hello, sir. Paulie Galtieri says, good evening, gentlemen. Good evening to you, sir. Agent Barry, aka that guy from City Alpha 5, says, hello, gentlemen. How are you both? We've had a very agreeable nice meal,
yep. And
we've got a pale cream sherry. Mr. Coleman's put some ice in it for me, which is very agreeable. Henry Hall 8538 says good evening to you both. I've seen you both at one of the NEC shows. Mr. Coleman had a very nice Alpha. Yes, the 166, the second 166. Yes.
Yeah, that lives in Brighton now. That does. A good friend of mine bought that off of me because he decided he couldn't live without it. So off it went.
Yeah, a beautiful car. Both of them were actually. I don't know which one I prefer. I think possibly the auto one, because it had the Buso engine and that sounded so great. And you know, I don't have problems with the clutch pedals because the clutch pedal rubbers on those 166s, they always fall off.
Yeah, they do. And
I find that a bit tricky to drive for me personally. But you know, there we go. Yeah, so more NEC action in November. I think a bit better accommodation actually, and book my ticket for that.
Oh, I don't know if I'll be here for that or not. I don't know.
You might be away.
No, I'll be away.
Yeah, because you missed out on holiday, didn't you? Yeah. But yeah, I'm sure you know one way or the other we'll be seeing some people later. Retro Matt, merry good evening, sirs. Merry good evening to you as well, sir. Simon from Lot 76 Cars. Big changes in the fleet. Well, you've only seen one so far. I mean, the other one. I mean, the Volvo S40 that you would have seen in the video today. Obviously, if you're like a channel member or something on the top 2 tiers, you would have seen that video quite a long time ago. I think I recorded them 3 weeks in advance, actually. The other one, I have recorded the video of the other car today. Mr. Coleman has been working on that for me. The only thing I'll say is a car that has appeared on the channel before.
Yes.
I have actually driven the car before. I drove it at some point in the past. That's all I'll say.
It's just there.
It's just there. Yeah, it is just there. And Julian Knight says, "Good evening, sir.
Evening.
I'm sorry I'm late. Don't worry, sir. That's okay. The rather uneventful adventures of Stickman." Ah, yes, yes, we know who you are, sir. Says hello. Good evening to you as well. Does anyone have any specific questions for Mr. Coleman? Because we don't actually get to actually do these that often. It's often when I'm here we're doing other things. There's a question. There's a question here from Simon. Sorry not to see Mr. Coleman's Alpha 90 Festival Exceptional.
Yeah, Vectra was there instead.
The Vectra was there. The Alpha 90. Do you want to say something about that, sir?
Yeah, the Alpha 90. It's in the garage. It's disappearing on Sunday. I listed it for sale on a few specialised forums, as it were, and it's the guy's coming to pay for it on Sunday, and a good friend of mine is going to transport it onto its next owner. It's going to be moving to North London somewhere, because that car has physically and mentally broken me, and I am so glad to be seeing the back of it. It was never to be, and it's the most expensive 300 miles I've ever done in my life, so it's going to be disappearing. You won't see it on my channel again, purely because it's just no good. So full send, it's got to go.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of these things. It's a little bit like in a way the 460's kind of been a little bit like that for me. The 6070 was probably the equivalent.
Yeah.
To be honest, of the Alpha 90, in that it was a fantastic idea, but it didn't really work out very well. The 460 is a little bit annoying because although it's been advertised now for 3 weeks, I think it might even be approaching 4. Nobody's interested in it.
Alpha sold on the same day I listed it for sale.
Yeah, I know, which is sort of crazy, but it's just the way that it is. I have an idea of what to do with it if I can't shift it the normal way, but that needs to be gone probably by the end of the month. I think I'm not absolutely desperate to get the money back for it. It's just having an extra car is totally unnecessary for us, and the car that I have bought to replace it is absolutely 100% really what I want in the future. My lady wife just doesn't like the 460 very much. She kind of will tolerate going in it, but she's never going to drive it. Whereas the other one I've got, I think she'll be a lot more comfortable driving it.
Yeah.
Let's go on to someone being always comment. Paulie Galtieri. It's an S40. Yeah, you just need to watch the video on it. The video's out, like the first one in this sort of series. There's going to be 4 videos in this series. It's talking about kind of changing over the fleet. I don't even know if I'll do a video if that 460 goes or not. I don't really know. I don't need to, perhaps.
No.
It's S40. The video's on there anyway. I think the car's actually in the thumbnail, to be honest. It's actually in the thumbnail, so you just need to watch the video, really. Paulie also says it was good to see Dougie talking to Mr. Coleman about the Vectra Arctic 2 V6.
Yeah, he's we've been messaging each other over the last couple of weeks, helping each other out, and it's been nice to get to know him. And I've been a subscriber for a long time, and we've exchanged messages and stuff before, but it's nice to actually meet him in person and him spend some time and actually have a look at my car. And I think he was, forgive the pun, quite smitten with it.
Yeah, he's got that Cavalier Diplomat that came from place called Worcester Park in London. I used to live very near there, and he was driving it around. I knew the roads he was actually on. So that was he's good. I'm not really a one make channel. I have particular brands that I like. Mr. Coleman's also got particular brands that he likes, and he's owned multiple examples of. I'm very much the same sort of person like that, but I don't think one brand of car is better than any other in particular. I have favourites that I personally prefer, like everybody else, but I'm very much of that sort of opinion. Like, some brands make great cars and bad cars.
And that's what people always say to me. Oh, yeah, what's your favourite car brand? I haven't got one, and looking at it from a mechanic's point of view, is that and I'll always say this to everyone. I hate them all equally, because they're all going to go wrong. It doesn't matter what it is, and people have their favourites. I have got some that I like, but I wouldn't call them my favourites or my go-to. It's if I like the car, sod it, I'll give it a try.
Yeah, I mean, when I wanted a C70, I wanted another Volvo, and actually, when we realised the 460 wasn't going to be staying as long as we thought, I wanted another Volvo.
Mm.
And actually, this one's come through the owners' club, the actual local section of it I'm part of, and it's a really, really nice car. It's been really well looked after. There are some things to do to it, but it's not actually that much. The video will tell you more about this. There's also an episode of No Budget Reviews coming on the car.
Yeah.
But I've done there's sort of more, but really I've done over 400 miles in it already, and at one point I was getting 41 miles per gallon, which for a 2.4 automatic white block Volvo is astonishing actually. Makes a great noise, but it's not that loud. I suppose the air conditioning worked. It would have been useful today if the air conditioning was working, but we've identified a problem with that already.
That today.
Yeah, we know what it would be, and I just need to go to the air conditioning specialist that I use in Southampton, and they'll fix that for me, which is good. Julian Knight says, has Mr. Coleman advised you not to buy a car?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Coleman's advised me
Yeah.
not to buy several cars.
Yeah.
Even when I'm sourcing cars for a client, I often will ask Mr. Coleman, is this going to be okay? And often he will say no.
No.
Sometimes he'll actually kind of say, I don't actually know much about them. I mean, stuff like the Kia Vengas and Hyundai X20s I source for tons of people.
Yeah.
I think I've sourced 5 or 6 of them, and I think I probably know a little bit more about them than Mr. Coleman does.
Yeah.
I know, for example, that they're very common for problems with the rear suspension for some reason.
Yeah, rear suspension, uneven brake pad wear on the front, they're really good at that.
Yeah.
But as far as actually being able to, maintaining and working on one, I just don't do it because I spend a lot of my time on trucks and working on the older stuff. You see, so my sort of, I can advise on what to look for and what does go wrong with them, but if it comes to actually, like major common faults and stuff that, interior-wise, or what people are actually going to be wanting to buy them for, I can't give that advice because I simply don't know.
Yeah, I have a really good sort of, because I've sourced so many of them now, I kind of have a feel about who the sort of person is who's going to be buying one and what they'll be interested in. But yeah, for some reason, I don't know why, it's not so much on the i20s, and they're the same platform as the first generation i20s, but they're made for an awful lot longer. They were made until 2019, whereas the first generation i20 was replaced in 2014, so they kept running for a long time. The engines are very, very, very reliable. They are the old Hyundai Gamma engines, for 1.6. They lasted in that car a lot longer than everything else, and they just don't tend to go wrong. The only thing that does happen with some is the timing chains can be a bit
they go noisy.
But if the timing chain is replacing, you tend to get a lot of warning, don't you, on those?
Yeah, you do. They're not like the Vauxhall engines or anything, and because with the Hyundai engines, it's the what actually goes with those. It's actually the sprockets that the chain runs around as it loops around the engine. It's the sprockets that wear on the camshafts, and the chain physically goes slack, and it rattles against the actual chain cover. And if they're left long enough, it will rub a hole in the chain cover, and you'll have a massive oil leak.
Yeah, it's lovely, but of course you get loads of warning, don't you, for that kind of thing? And people often ask me what is the most reliable brand of car, and sometimes that's very difficult to say because actually, if you look at Mazda, for example, the Mazda reliability, and as a friend of mine who works at a Mazda dealership, he will say it's getting worse. But so certain models like the Mazda 2, for example, is a really, really reliable car. Like they are with the older generation of engines now. They've not got that funny sort of compression ignition Skyactiv X engine in them. So although that actually is not too bad, it just tends to be one of the reason like electrics and things like that, and sort of software failings on the modern ones. But the actual 2 is very good. It tends to be like that, and some of the Hondas are like that. now, and those tend to be like the most reliable brands ever. So I don't know. Even the Kias and Hondas have their problems. As we sort of said, the iX20 we saw in the video yesterday, I actually sourced that for a client in June, that very car, and that has had the rear suspension done already, and it's only done 45,000 miles or something, and it's only a 2016. It's not a massive problem in them. It's not too difficult to do. It's just everything's got problems, and Mr. Coleman said, he hates everything equally. Henry Holt 8538. Question for Mr. Coleman. Any more Alphas?
No.
No Alpha GTs?
No.
The GTs, they're quite prone to rust, aren't they?
Yeah, terrible.
And they had the 3.2 booster, didn't they?
They did have, excuse me, they did have the 3.2, and they had the JTS 2 litre and a diesel, if you're an idiot.
We can't talk about those, can we? No, we can't talk about those. No. So no more at the moment. Although you do like Alphas, don't you?
I do like Alphas.
Just not only one.
Not at the minute, no. So the 166 is a fantastic car, but I don't necessarily like to chop and change. I just fancied experiencing one. I ended up having two, and they were great. But as far as what I call period Alpha from 70s and 80s stuff, I've been there. I've done that. It ain't good.
And you're one of the bravest people in the country to have that 90.
Yeah, it's a lovely car, and I still love it to bits. But I've got to the stage with it now, with its new engine and all that kind of stuff. It's there, it's good to go, and it can be somebody else's now, and they can go and enjoy it because I ain't enjoying it anymore. Simple as that.
Yeah, exactly. So Agent Barry, that guy from City Alpha 5, I just saw a Cadillac Catera.
Oh,
which is the American version of the Oxford Amiga. 3 to V6, weren't they?
Yeah, it's an Amiga with a fat body on it.
Yeah. Are those any good, sir?
Yeah, it's just like an Amiga.
Yeah, but they weren't very well received, were they?
No, most Cadillacs of the late 90s in the States. Not very good. But that was probably one of the better Cadillacs you could buy in the late 90s, early 2000s, because it was just, like I say, an Amiga with an overweight body kit on it.
It sort of kind of was probably like a lot of these Cadillacs. It's like the stuff they used to market in the late 2000s over here, the one that's based on the Saab 93 and stuff like that.
BTS and stuff
like
that. Yeah.
Exactly. But I think it was BLS or something, CTS, that sort of stuff. It sort of suffered from the fact that nobody knew kind of what they were, and they had horrific depreciation. Yeah. Other than that, the one based on a 993 was just like a 993. It was made in the same place as a 93. Yeah. So that's sort of the biggest problem is because of badge on a lot of those things. So Agent Barry also says the best S40 was Rickard Rydell's TWR BTCC version. It's not that type of S40 I've actually bought. Yeah. They are very different cars from the second generation ones. They were based on the same platform as the Mitsubishi Charisma and Space Star. Yeah. And you can even get one in the Mitsubishi engine, the old GDI, and that, apart from the T5 Volvos, is really the only Volvo after 1974 that you can't run on E10 petrol. Yeah. The T5s you can, but it's because of the octane. You need 97 octane minimum fuel in them, and at the moment in this country they don't sell E10 as 97 or more. It's only 95. So it's an emergency. The T5 or probably the 1.8 GDI, you could chuck that in, but they both need to have specialist fuel in them actually. Whereas everything else, including the one I've got, it's a white block Volvo, but you can just put E10 in that, and the 460 is fine as well. Yeah. Because basically all Renaults are as well. Yeah. Sif Upperlip says, I thought you'd gone for an S60 or V70. I looked at a lot of V70s and S70s. In fact, there is a video where I talk about a test drive I took in an S70, and a lady wife came with me, and it was an absolute disaster. It was an absolute total disaster. That. It didn't go well, that one. The S60, I have driven one. There's a very old video on the channel from 2020, I think, where I do drive an S60 on No Budget Reviews. Because back in the day, you could pick up one of those for under £500. You can't really now, but you could. And they're very nice cars. But the turning circles, absolutely, utterly appalling. Yeah. And the rear visibility is not much better than my C70. And two of the things were a problem, apart from the mechanical issues with the car, were the turning circle and the rear visibility,
Yeah.
and the S60 is quite similar to that. This is a bit better, the S40 that I've got. Bash the Bishop says they are the best Bloodmills to acquire. Well, they're still really cheap, aren't they, the first generation S60s? In fact, like P2 V70s are still really cheap as well, and they are on a very similar platform, but the turning circle is a little bit better on the V70. It's not great, but it is a bit better, and you can actually park them, because I have driven one and you can actually park them. He says they're thirsty but reliable. Yeah, the thing is about this one I've got, like, I think it's the most economical white block Volvo ever. It does like 41 on a long run, which is, you could only get maybe 30, 32 out of the C70 T5 I had. Everything Cars says, good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. Chambers 101 says, good evening, lads. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Bash Bishop says, I've had the same S60 T3. Did they do a T3 S60? 2003 for 13 years, which is a bit, or T5, okay, yeah. But I don't know if the later T5, we're not talking about the T5s in the Focus ST, because that's sort of the last of the T5. They went until 2016, the T5s, but they were kind of re-engineered by Ford in the early 2000s. And so the white block that I've got in this is a very different white block to the one I had in the C70 T5. Now, the T5s can be okay, but they do suffer from quite catastrophic problems sometimes. It's not
been looked after.
It's not kind of the case. It's always, because I know that there are some T5s that have done 400, 500,000 miles. Yeah, the police used to use them. But if you skip on the servicing, I think there'd be some servicing that you skimped on that C70 at some point, because there were big gaps in service history on it, and I think that's what was basically inevitable. When the car was serviced in November, and Mr. Coleman did the cam belt on it, it was okay. It was all right at that time.
Yeah, fine.
But then a couple of weeks later, it started to let go, and then it really let go, and it ended up with losing half its oil on the way up here.
Yeah.
Which is why it was. But Mr. Coleman looked over it quite comprehensively, and it was completely uneconomical to repair. And people still to this day keep telling me how oh, it's such an easy job, it's such an idiot for selling it, like
it's your choice.
Like can't you do that yourself? The thing is that I don't want to do it myself.
No.
But want to be able to do it, and Mr. Coleman is somebody who has a lot of expertise in this area, and I trust him. In fact, I quote, one of the country's best mechanics, and that's no, those aren't even my words.
Thank you.
So he does actually have some kind of sort of expertise in that area. Jova R, who has a United States flag and as on it is a little profile picture here. Have you seen any American cars around where you live? Are you interested in any American cars? This is Mr. Coleman's answer, I think, because Mr. Coleman actually you're a quarter American, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah.
And having spent a lot of time over there in my youth and with family and holiday and stuff, South Carolina. I do like my American cars. Only certain ones, but yeah, I'm quite a big fan of the Ford Excursion, the one that's got the fuel efficient V10 in it. I do like those.
Yeah, very fuel efficient, Mr.
Yeah,
Coleman.
very, very, very fuel efficient. I do. I'm quite. I quite like Buicks, and I quite like my Oldsmobiles, and the Buicks of the mid 90s through to the mid 2000s, fantastic cars. LaCrosse, LeSabre, all that kind of stuff, fantastic. I've got that GM 3.8 engine in it, brilliant. Really good. V8, the V8, it's a 3.8
V6,
V6, fantastic engine.
I think they call it a 3800, don't they?
3800, yeah.
I've heard that a 3800 is a really, really reliable engine, actually.
Yeah.
And they can be picked up for really not much money at all.
Money,
which a lot of people are now buying those as kind of like sort of bangers, really, aren't they? Yeah. And of course, the old Buicks and Oldsmobiles were often owned by sort of older people, weren't they? Who tended to look after them a bit. Chris James says, this Chris James. Hello, you two. Hello, sir. The rather uneventful Adventures of Stickman says, well, that's a record. I've been here 10 minutes and not mentioned 2024 as the year of the Streetwise. Certain Streetwises, sir. The ones which are powered by the wrong fuel, we don't talk about on this channel.
Okay.
I'm afraid that has been the case for 5 years. Everything Cars says, what is your favourite car you've ever driven? I have no idea. I've driven tons. I drive maybe.
Fond of the 166 and the Granada, weren't you?
I drive like 300-400 cars a year, something like that. Something stupid like that. And the Volvo 960 was really good.
Mine.
Yeah, that's a fantastic car. It's a real shame that it's not around anymore. But Mr. Coleman's brother's got a very similar car now as well. Yeah. They are superb cars. There's very few facelift 960s left now. It's in the sort of two figures, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's in the two
about
figures.
50.
Yeah, they're very rare.
Really.
Those are superb cars. It's a real shame that they depreciated so much, and actually they're not even that expensive now.
They're not. They're getting there. I mean, the prices are all over. I don't know what it is with the 960s. The saloons always tend to fetch more money than the estates, and I've never got to the bottom of that. But it is what it is.
Yeah, but those are really good. The thing that amazed me about that car, because obviously I grew up with Volvo estates in the family, was how different it felt from the older red block engine ones. And of course the platform is sort of based on a 940 740, but the rear suspension is the thing that makes that car.
Yeah, it's all independent suspension on the back of a 960 with one single. Let me get this right. It's like a polycarbonate leaf spring that's mounted transversely, and it makes those cars what they are, because they really do handle, and they will actually do a full turning circle in their own length. Yeah, they are very good.
Yeah, we were doing a filming back in 2019, and we're not far from here, and turning that car around was so much easier than the other two cars we were reviewing actually on the same day, both the Primera and the Granada. Much easier car to turn around. Even though the seat was broken, it was an electric seat, it didn't.
Yeah, it didn't.
I still find it really comfortable, and I'd happily drive another one of those. I mean, I probably wouldn't own one because they are enormous cars.
Yeah, they are big,
and they're not too clever on the fuel. Now, Mr. Coleman had an LPG conversion on it, which kind of eased the pain a little bit. But yeah, 22, 23 MPG.
Yeah, tops. Used to get. Sometimes just driving it locally to work and stuff, you struggle to get 15.
Yeah, it's crazy. So that's it. The Granada was an absolute landmark car. I wanted to drive a Mark II Granada for many, many years, probably since first watching Professionals in 2002. I first watched it, and that's a very rare Granada that Mr. Coleman has. It's been in the family since new, which was registered in March '83.
Built December the 8th, 82, registered March 83.
Yeah, so it's an 82 model, but registered in 83. Gearax with the carb, not the fuel injection, 5-speed factory 5-speed manual.
Yeah.
Loads of lovely options on it, and I think personally as well, the one thing that is the biggest modification you've done to the car, apart from the carb you changed on it, is the wheels, which are from the Mark III Scorpio Cosworth 4x4, and they are just right.
Yeah, they are.
Mr. Coleman and I aren't really into modified cars, but we do like certain subtle modifications. Yeah, and that is like a sort of late 80s or early 90s modification that people did to Mark II Granadas, and Mark II Granadas look, especially the facelift ones, look great on those wheels.
Yeah,
and it's a lot more practical because you actually get the tyres for them.
You can get the tyres, yeah, because it had metric wheels on it, which I've still got. But only Michelin ever makes the tyres for those, and they're stupid money. It's like $4,000 for a set of tyres, and I'm not paying that for a car that does 1,000 miles a year, because I have to change the tyres on it every 8 or 9 years because they just dry out and rot and go 50 pence shaped. And I'd rather spend £300 on a set of decent tyres to put on it rather than $4,000 for it to sit, because it's all it does. It doesn't get used a great deal.
Yeah, so I find that car a little bit difficult to drive, and I'm not really allowed to drive it very much because I've done things to it which Mr. Coleman doesn't really like, shall we say. He had to change some couplings and things like that, and drive shaft bits in it because I couldn't drive it.
Yeah.
So I don't tend to drive it very much. I can, I just don't tend to. If that was an auto Granada, I wouldn't have a problem, but of course the autos aren't as good as the manuals.
No, they're not.
Ian Seabrook drove an Auto 1, and it's all right. It's only got a 3-speed gearbox.
Yeah, they're terrible. I don't know why they put that gearbox in the crap.
But the majority of the 2.8 Granadas were Auto, weren't they?
Yeah.
So they were. But it's a fantastic car. It's a family heirloom, and it's never going anywhere. So I was so privileged to drive one of those in that condition, and I think even since I've driven it, like the agreed value's gone up considerably.
Yeah, it's gone.
They're starting to actually really find a sort of niche now, and
it wasn't me that put the agreed value up on it, is it? That's when my insurance company said, look,
it's too low.
Yeah, it's too low. You need to put it up. So I did.
Yeah, I mean, the Basingstoke, what's it called? I keep forgetting what it's called. It's the car show in every May. Often the Mark 1, Mark 2 Granada Guild brings some cars there, and actually that's probably one of the best displays. And also last year at Nebworth House Classic Car Show, they had 50 years of the Granada, and they had so many Mark 1 and Mark 2 Granadas there. And most of them actually that survive are Mark 2 Gear and Gear X's now. Obviously saloons are more common than the estates, and they are superb cars. They're one of the best cars Ford of Europe ever built.
Yeah.
So
Oh my God. Just laughing faces.
it's about the new professionals, sir.
Oh.
That's something that I'm going to have to sort of talk about at some point, even though I don't like to. So yeah, the Mark II Granada's very good. I've actually driven a 507 horsepower Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio on the Millbrook Proving Grounds high-speed bowl. I mean, that was a bit of an experience in itself. And I've driven things like Datsun 260Zs. One of the most powerful cars I ever drove was a 420 brake horsepower BMW Med 140i being tuned by Litchfield. Not as powerful as the Alpha, but it was still very powerful. And that was a handful. That car, that was a real handful. It's not the sort of thing I normally drive, but I thought I'd have a go in it, as I did. Agent Barry, that guy from City Alpha 5, says it's a relief not to have any of Mr. Boaty and Project Nod disgusting babble. I can't possibly talk about that. We have observed some of that, but we can't possibly talk about that, can we? The rather uneventful, adventure Stickman says to Jova R, 00 Garage's American car content. The meetups and shows definitely look like there's something to experience in person. I've never heard of that channel personally, actually. I don't think so. Paulie Garturi says the Cadillac Catera drove better than any American-built Cadillac.
Yeah, because it's from Europe.
Yeah, built in is it Rüsselsheim?
Yeah.
Rüsselsheim in Germany. So we've got. This is a good question for you, Mr. Coleman. Can I run my 2004 Alfa Romeo GT with the JTS engine on E10?
Yes, of course you can.
Yeah, there you go. You don't have. You can run it on E5 if you want, but you can put E10 in it as well. This is a good thing. Paul Degattieri says we don't talk about City Rover. No. We don't talk about Shane Ritchie. No. Because of the terrible, was it 2009 series of Minder?
Yeah.
That was terrible. All the new professionals, despite the fact that one of my friends, who's called Adrian Irvine, was in the new professionals. He wasn't one of the leads. There were 4 leads. He was like one of the secondary leads in it, and he was fine, but we didn't give him anything to do. And I have talked to him about his time doing new professionals, and he just said there wasn't anything to do. I was very excited about doing it. I thought, it was going to be a big break, because he wasn't very old when he did it at all. I think he was in his late 20s. David Wicks, who's one of the original directors of the professionals in Sweeney, he actually managed to get it off the ground with the help of Brian Clemens, who co-created professionals with Albert Fennell. I think Albert Fennell was dead by 97 when we started filming on it. And they had some decent cars in it. They had some Mondeo SG24s in it. They had Nissan 200 SX, which was the main car in the new professionals, and some others. But they had to get sort of financing for various bits, and no channels would ever take it. No terrestrial channels would take new professionals at all. They eventually went to Sky, who took it to Sky One in 1999, but it just never worked. And if you watch it, the main thing that works about professionals, the same thing for Sweeney really, is the relationship between the leading characters, and it's all right. I suppose.
I've never watched it.
You don't watch it, Mr. Coleman. Don't watch new professionals. You will not have a good day.
No, I don't think I'll.
You won't have a good day watching that. Some episodes are okay. A lot of them are average. Some of them are terrible. That's all I have to say, really. I wouldn't bother really watching that. It's not good. In fact, Agent Barry, the guy from SETI Alpha 5, says, I'd rather bang big nails into my head with a phone book but never watch New Professionals.
Yeah. I'd rather plait custard.
Yeah, don't. I've done a video years ago about the cars used in that, and no. The rather uneventful adventures of Stickman, so I didn't know there was New Professionals. I suspect I didn't need to. You did not need to, and don't look it up, because there's actually a clip on YouTube which shows a scene from the first episode of it, and it just shows you how it just doesn't work.
It sounds crap.
Yeah, Barry says that guy from SETI Alpha 5, it's for TV equivalent of scraping nails on a blackboard. Some of the episodes are, yeah. Greg Lewis says they were useless at towing. I don't know what car is this. They were useless at towing unless you were good at changing gearboxes. I don't know what car that is. That's not Granada, is it?
No.
No, I don't think so. You've towed in your Granada, haven't you?
Eh?
You've towed in your Granada, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you had. This is a good question. Stiff Upper Lip says, what do you think of the Chrysler 300C?
Crap.
Have you ever had one of those, Mr. Coleman?
I've raced one.
Oh, they're quite good at racing, aren't they?
Yeah, that's all they're useful for.
Because they're effectively an old E-Class, aren't they?
Yeah.
Is it a W210? T10s, yeah. But they lasted for a lot longer than that. I think they've just been discontinued. I think they've just stopped selling them now.
Good.
Or rather, they had loads of equivalents, they had Dodge equivalents and all sorts of things like that. And I think the platforms sort of stayed the same right to the end. I think it was that platform.
It was.
The same thing with the Dodge. I think Challenger was the same as well. Underneath.
Challenger and the Crossfire.
The Crossfire was an SLK.
Mm.
The Crossfire is not a car that I think is the best.
No, not me.
It's not the best, really. Here we go. Barry says, well, I've lived in America, so he knows this. He's driven a 300C. It's a bit way with the steering. Yeah, it's recycling ball, isn't it? No?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Same platform as latest or Charger. Yeah, they kept that platform going for years and years and years.
It's an half decent platform, to be fair. It's just with the Chrysler stuff. I don't know what I mean. Most of them, well, in the US, they'll have the decent engines in them, whereas we over here didn't. You know, most of them were the OM605 diesel.
Yeah, we can't talk about that, can we?
And they had the asthmatic 280 V6 in them from Merc.
Did we get the V8 over here?
We did get the V8s over here. We did have the Hemi ones over here, but they were stupid money, and they were like, I think, nearly £600 a year to tax.
Yeah, because of super tax, weren't they?
Yeah. So there is a Hemi one goes around Coventry where I am, a black one. It's a wagon, an estate. Nice looking car, fantastic looking car, but to work on, hateful. Residual values crap, and you've just got all the main ailments that you do with a normal 210 Merc, which is rust and electrical problems. So
the thing is, there's a following for everything. I know up near where I live, near local shows, there's a group of people who always bring the 300Cs to it.
Yeah.
And you know, some of them really like them. There's a following for any car.
I'd rather have a Chrysler 300C than a Chrysler Pleasure Touring Cruiser.
Yeah, we don't like those.
No.
Not good. Not good at all. Henry Hall 8538 says there wasn't New Professionals. Yes, and don't watch it. Please, for your own safety, do not watch CI5 The New Professionals. That's all I'm going to say. Paulie says, what did Nigel say? I know he was annoyed about his crash. Well, he was. He was annoyed about somebody who went into the back of him in his very rare facelift Rover 25. We can't talk about that, unfortunately, but the actual accident itself was not his fault as far as I'm aware, and that was very annoying. Greg Lewis says, he says that the Ford Granada automatic was bad for towing.
Oh yeah, terrible.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
so
the automatic ones were terrible for towing because they used to the gearboxes used to overheat.
I think that's
the gearboxes
exactly.
used to overheat, and it used to blow out the main shaft torque converter seal, and dump all its oil out all over the A6, and then you'll be stranded.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Is there a certain place in the A6 used to do it?
I'm just using that as a reference. You know, you can do it on the M6, do it on the M42.
Anywhere.
I'll do it on Cardigan Road here.
Oh, right, brilliant.
But
yeah.
no, those Borg Warner boxes in those really were a terrible gearbox, and it was I don't know why they fitted that when they had the chance of putting ZF gearboxes in them that have 4 and 5 speeds, but they just put a Borg Warner C3 or a C4 3-speed in it that was from the 60s.
Yeah, it's a similar thing to the
Crap.
with the P6.
Every one of those I've broke over the years of racing. I've never even kept the auto box out of it. If it was perfect running or been rebuilt and got warranty on it and that, straight out, straight in the skip.
And
simple as that.
Metal recycling.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not the best then. We want the Type 9. Right, what did we say here? So Gooby says post 13 lovely cars, especially for heavies. It's really weird. You can get those over here. There was a 70 plate one I used to see at some shows, and there's a company that would import Australian spec 300Cs or whatever else they're called, because they've got loads of different names for those cars. And yeah, exactly, for Australian spec. So you can sort of get them if you want.
Fantastic looking car. They look great.
It looks amazing. I think they look fantastic, especially the facelift ones from like 2020 or 2021. I think they've stopped production of them now. But yeah, it's just funny. Like there's a lot of kind of cars that don't look like much, but actually are really good. There's a car I drove quite recently. Actually, a friend of mine offered it to me, and you'll see it on contingency reviews at some point. They don't look like much, but they're actually really good. And the S40 is one of those cars. It doesn't look like much, but they are. But the white block engine ones, and you can get a T5 as well if you really want. They're fantastic. The 300Cs maybe the opposite. It looks great, and Crossfire's kind of like that too. They look quite nice, but they're not that nice to drive, the Crossfires, and they do have a lot of problems. Which is weird because they were built alongside the SLKs and they don't tend to have as many problems.
I'd rather talk about diesels than a Crossfire.
Yeah, I think it looks like a nice car. It's just I'm not sure that it really is. It's my experience of driven one anyway. Right, here we go. Simone from Hecton Classics is here. Hello, Simone.
Hey, Simone.
And Civil Lip says that Paul from Project Nigel has to clear his yard of Rovers. Yes, Captain Mustard has been told by the landlord that he has to slim down his collection of stuff in the yard in Rochdale, I think he lives in. Yeah, it's a shame. He's got tons of them though. He's got loads in various states of repair, and I don't quite know what he's going to do about that. I've seen the video about that. It's a real shame actually, because he's been there a long time. Simone says, I'm sorry, I was fixing the CD player on Rover 75. That's no problem. Travis 101, has Mr. Coleman still got the Jeep?
No.
No, that's not here anymore.
That's why I'm feeling so bitter about the Alpha 90, because it cost me that much money. I've had to sell the Jeep to pay for it.
Yeah, it is. The amount of money that's gone into that car.
It's ridiculous.
It's probably one of the biggest sort of amounts of money ever put into any car, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just a sort of a shame. You know, when that Alpha's gone, when my 460's gone, we'll be
happy people.
We'll be very happy. Well, if the 460 is actually running, it's running fine. It's just I don't want to put any more money into it. Really, it's not worth it. You know, I've really enjoyed it. Turning up at shows in that car is amazing. I'm really surprised that car didn't get more attention at Festival on Exceptional. There's actually a video on the Planet Auto channel of me arriving in it. Mr. Quirk didn't actually realise at the time that he was filming me. And there's a chap in a kilt crossing the road in front of me. It's in part one of his non-shambolic non-shuffle. And the thing is that when we went there, I was in the first group of people who went into the second field, because they filled the first field Mr. Coleman was in.
Yeah.
I got there at the time I said on my ticket, it was 9:30, queued for an hour to get in, and by that time they filled in the second field, which is fine, I don't mind. But they put us right down the far end of the second field. They didn't fill from the beginning, they filled from the end. And I don't know the reason for that at all, which is really annoying. And so, like, you're down the far end, you're the furthest away from everywhere, and so nobody gets to see
That's
you.
why I always get there when I do a festival and exceptional. Just get there early. Even if you have to queue and wait on the road, at least you're there, because when the gates open, you're straight in.
It was a bit rubbish. Last year we got up there a bit early, and to be honest, in a way, I'm kind of thinking that Mr. Coleman and I should take one car again.
Yeah.
Because of the way that it works. You could have like 7 people in your car. If you've got like a 240 estate with 7 seats, it costs you the same as if you've got one person in it.
If we did that next year, we could go in the car that I haven't bought yet. Ooh.
You could go in a car that you have not bought yet, sir, which we'll not talk about either, because that's confidential.
Yeah.
So what else have we got here? So everyone's saying hello to Simone, that's great. Greg Lewis says Scimitar has an oil cooler on the same gearbox.
Yeah, it does.
Which would be better, I imagine. Paul Leoto says the Borg 165 is great for towing in the Jaguar XJ6 Series 2 and 3.
Yes.
It's different. Is that a different gearbox?
It's kind of it is slightly different. It's still a 3-speed, but the bit that don't out going back to the Granadas, why those gearboxes are so crap in the Granadas is because right underneath the gearbox sump are 2 exhaust silencer boxes, whereas on the Jag you don't get that because they're right down the back. And on the Granada, when you tow in, obviously the exhaust red hot. There's not really much of an oil cooler on the Granadas anyway. You've got literally 2 centre silencers right next to each other that are right underneath the gearbox. Used to overheat the gearbox, the seals used to melt, you had red stuff falling out everywhere. Rubbish. Absolutely rubbish.
Gosh. And then on an XJ6 it's a bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Borg 165's, it's a very similar design to the old C3 and C4s, but it can handle the power a bit better, and it was in a lot of American stuff as well.
Will it go into the V12 XJs as well?
Yeah.
So it could handle a lot of power then?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The rather uneventful Inventive Stickman says, I'll accept the eye rolls. Mr. Coleman should do a video with Captain Mustard Project Nigel.
Yeah, it's been suggested.
It has been, although I suspect that Captain Mustard would be asking Mr. Coleman to do a lot of work for him.
Yeah, which won't happen.
Which Mr. Coleman does not have the time to do.
That's why I've not been posting so much on my channel just lately, because where I work, I happen to work with some very dear friends of mine who I actually grew up with, family members, etc, etc. And 2 of my guys that work with me are quite seriously ill at the moment. One is not going to be here much longer. And yeah, it is. And I'm working some weekends, I'm working late in the evenings, and you know, it's not because I haven't got time. You know, as Joseph will attest, it takes a long time to put a video together, especially when you're working on a car. And you know, I'm still doing the same amount of work that I do on my own cars and customers' cars, if you want to call that. But I'm just concentrating on getting the work done rather than doing that, because I just physically haven't got the time, and I can't concentrate on doing the videos as much as I can as I'm doing on the cars, because I want it to get done. Because the be all and end all of it is I'm very tired at the minute, because I'm doing a lot of stuff at the minute, and dealing with the Alpha 90's not helped, and with situations and stuff that's going on at work. Work's absolutely fine, but when you do, it's just been really busy, and when you're dealing with a situation where you kind of work with family, it takes its toll on it a little bit, and the emotions haven't been there at the minute, so that's why there's not been much happening. I've been doing a lot of work with Joseph. You know, we're looking after each other absolutely fine, but as far as the videos go at the minute, it's not going to be happening. But I will try over the next couple of days, and I will give you a fleet update. I will explain what's going on with the 90, and I will explain what's probably going to be replacing it, because it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, was it your brother? Was it Martin, your brother, who sent that over to you?
It's Martin.
Yeah, I looked at the car, and it has one particular feature that really appeals to Mr. Coleman, and one particular feature that really appeals to me.
Yes.
And one particular feature that will appeal to quite a lot of you as well, in terms of what it is, because a lot of you have been asking me to drive one of these cars for a really, really long time. I've not been able to. Funnily enough, I've been offered another one of these as well. It's just suddenly come in the course of a few days. And that one I probably will drive anyway, because this one's quite a unique one. The feature appeals to Mr. Coleman hasn't not in this other one.
This particular car that I'm possibly considering it's an awful lot of money, but it's my perfect how can I put it? It's my perfect model with the period extras and the dealer options that are on it are perfect, and
Yeah, it's so
it
good.
is nice,
Yeah,
and I think and it will be a keeper as well,
yeah.
because it's you won't find another one like it.
No, it's a bit like the car that I've just bought to replace a 460. It's a very unique spec
Yeah.
for one of these, and that's one of the reasons why it was always in the back of my mind after I'd driven it. It's a very rare spec. People who are in the scene for these cars recognise how rare the spec is.
Yeah.
And you know, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not ever going to find another one probably quite like
No, you
this.
won't, no.
There are others that are a little bit different, but this one is, yeah, that's why really why I wanted it. And Mr. Coleman's kind of the same with the thing he's considering at the moment. But you know, we can't talk about those too much, can we? What's this says? Gooby, who is Darren? Hello, Darren. The final year for the 300C is 2023. My gosh, it's a long production run, isn't it? After 2013, they came out in 11. The current generation came out in 11, also known as the Lancia Tamer in some parts of the world. After 2013, the interiors were improved. So Darren asked me both, well, yeah, well, we've been talking about, haven't we? Henry Holst 8538 says, have either of you ever driven a Fiat A50 Coupe? No, I've never driven one of those.
No, I haven't.
I know them, of course. The 850 is, I think, quite an interesting car. It's sort of a thing that sort of bridges the gap between the 600 and things like the 128, really.
Get a drink. 2 minutes.
Yeah. So we had it as a family car in the early 70s. We loved it as children as it replaced our ancient Hillman Minx. How did you get a family of 5 into a Fiat 850 Coupe? I don't really see how that's possible, but you know, back in the day, people did that kind of thing, didn't they?
What were they, 12 midgets?
No, maybe, I'm not sure. This is actually a really good question from Simone.
Oh, come on, then, top up there.
Just a little bit, thank you, sir. I don't want to have too much.
It's
Neither of us are driving tonight, of course. We've done some driving today and we're not doing any more. Do you ever get moments when you're fed up of editing?
Yeah.
You have content to play with, but no motivation to do it because it's so boring. The only way I can actually do like 9, 10 shambolic shuffles in a day is because they require minimal editing. That's because of the way I do it. And lots of people do it different ways. But I just, you know, I have to kind of get into the zone and sort of get through them. It has to be easy for me most of the time, otherwise I can't do it. Videos of the sort of standard that Mr. Franks has made for me in the past, which is True Jacket reviews and things like that. I mean, that is a standard of editing and a quality of filming that I am unable to reproduce. But the thing is that a lot of people don't seem to mind that it's like that.
No.
Mr. Coleman, I know with the videos that he makes, they're very simple videos.
They are very simple videos, and I do a little bit of editing, because I do have some limited editing software. Mine's all done on my phone. And,
Most people do that.
Yeah,
Most people do that.
And you know, but the thing is, I'm talking you through a job, and now, but there's one thing I will always say: don't trust anything that's you see on the internet.
Well, Hayes manual.
Yeah, the Hayes Book of Fairy Tales. Why does it tell you to disconnect the battery when you wash your car? That's my only question I've got about a Hayes manual.
What?
Yeah, I know.
But
I know.
what happens if it rains?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, so you know, I enjoy doing the videos and that when I can, because I enjoy interacting with everybody, and you know, that's why I always say, you know, likes, criticisms, anything, stick them down below, and I'll do my best to get back to you, which I always do. But you know, I don't do a great deal of editing, and the thing is, the jobs that I show you that I do, you know, I only film 1 in 5, 6, 7 cars that I have in to do the work, and then the jobs that I know that I can do with the tools that I've got here, where I'm not searching around and doing this, that and the other. It's just a nice easy flowing video to have a bit of a laugh and a joke with, and that's all my videos are about. You know, and you know, it's always say, oh, never follow what you see on the internet. True, but you can always come and ask me for advice and all that kind of stuff, and I'll give it to you. You know.
Yeah, they're very good videos that Mr. Colbert does, and a lot of people actually get a lot of kind of, you know, helpful tips on what to do. You've got sort of it's over 20 years of experience you have, isn't it? Fixing cars over 20 years, which is an awful lot. You know, I can't do anything really. But yeah, I can top up brake fluid and things like that, and I actually changed an oil filter. The Sanyong oil filter is really easy.
Yeah.
It's just a spin on. it's just a spin-on filter on those, and it's really easy to change them.
That'll be the next one in for a service, won't it?
Yeah, the Sanyong needs servicing. I have the oil filter part number written down actually.
W79.
Yeah, it's a really weird thing about Sanyongs, and in the update that I did this week in it, is that the main dealer will not sell you the parts unless you are working for a dealer.
Yeah.
Even an independent garage.
Yeah.
Like
With
one
my,
that your uncle owns.
even with my business accounts and all that kind of stuff, I can apply to Alfa Romeo, Vauxhall, Mercedes, BMW, anything like that. Can I have an oil filter for blah blah blah? Yes, sir, no problem. We'll send it out to you. Great. Sanyong pretty much told me to go and get in the sea, and I was like, okay, so I'll just order my bits from where I normally get them from, and you had patent parts on it, it'd be fine.
The really funny thing is that the oil filter in particular, that one is exactly the same oil filter, it's just it didn't have a Sanyong logo on it. It's exactly the same thing, down to everything, and it's just normal stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all normal stuff, and this is the strange thing. So actually, you can service your Sanyong independently at a VAT registered garage, which is what I do. It's Mr. Common Uncle's garage, where the MOT's done. But we have to get as close as we can sort of do it, and that's actually perfectly fine. I've talked to the Sanyong press department about this, and they said, well, that's fine, and obviously it has to be fine because of the old EU regulations that used to be about this. You have to actually allow people to do it, but Sanyong are sort of worst in that respect. It's why so few of them ever leave the dealer network. And even when you were buying brake parts, funny thing about the car is actually the tyres, which are a really odd, weird size.
I can't remember what size they were, but I actually had to order them in.
Yeah.
They weren't in stock, so I think I had to, what was it, 3 days for them to come in?
Yeah, it was a really odd tyre size. It's a very strange one. And if we have to relate to the rear, it's still original. It's 36,000 miles and it's still on original rear tyres and things, which is fine. But when we have to replace the rear ones, we'll have to just get a different size. Yeah, just a set 4, because we have decided to keep the car a bit longer. We were thinking of moving it on, but having spoken to my lady wife about it, she says that really, what are we going to get for the money we get for trading it in? And the answer is, something worse is the answer to that question. So that's why we're going to keep it. This is an interesting question, sir. So it's from Dan. Did you think that the applause was a suitable winner for Festival Year Exceptional? And if not, what do you think would have been from the concours entrance? One of the things that actually I've said since it happened, and people have been asking about, the concours judges don't know what they're talking about, and they're all biased. I sort of thought, hang on a second, like everybody's biased, like everyone is, and I would not want to ever judge any competition like that. I'd not want to do it.
No, I've done a lot of judging and stuff over the years, particularly involving with the Cortinas and Granadas, and I know exactly where he's coming from. But I won't say an argument because I haven't got one, and fair play to whoever's won it. I would personally, now this is my thoughts only, take it as you will, I think it should have gone to a UK car, not a, was it Sweden?
Swedish registered, yeah.
Swedish car, or that from any other foreign country, and I've got nothing against that. Maybe do it something differently, have the furthest travelled award and give them, the same sort of thing that they've got.
Yeah, it was that chap from Poland in the Hyundai X2 who came last year, all in Poland.
It's what we do at, when we have the big banger racing meets and all that kind of stuff, because some of the big meetings and stuff that we've done over the year that I've marshalled for and I've raced at, etc., etc. We've had guys, particularly when we're based down at Ringwood over at Kings Lynn, we've had guys come from like Denmark. We even had one guy back in 2016 come all the way from Johannesburg in South Africa with a Mark II Granada on his trailer to come and race it with us, which I thought was fantastic.
That's crazy. I remember that race at Ringwood.
May 2016.
In 2021,
the one you
that I went to was amazing. Like I know, having spoken to Mr. Commons and other people who were kind of there, that actually that wasn't necessarily a vintage meeting for the Mark II and Mark I Granadas. But 2016, I have seen footage of that, and it was astonishing.
Oh, the best meeting I've ever raced at.
Yeah, because you had how many awards did you win? You won like a stack of trophies, didn't you? At that time. That's probably why you think it was so good.
Well, yeah, and it was held over 2 days, and I went home with 2 scrap cars. It was great. The first one I only got half a lap out of, and the other one I did some decent hits and some racing with it. It was fantastic, and the best racing I've ever done. And the silver one, the roadworthy car, went there as well for the car show because they had the big car show there as well.
Yeah. If you want to see a flavour of that kind of thing, the show that they did, there was also a show there in 2021. Of course, Mr. Coleman was exhibiting at the show, and it's a really good selection of Mark 1 and Mark 2 Granadas. There's more Mark 2s because there's more Mark 2s left.
Yeah.
But some of them are not Concours, which is fine. Some of them are a little bit modified.
Yeah.
Some of them are like discovers really nice ones, and that was
They're all owned by racers.
and that in itself was a really good little show in itself. It's why I had a separate video. It was brilliant. But some of the racing, my favourite car to see race, there was one car that wasn't painted. It was an original colour.
In the raw with all that.
Yeah, a blue one, and it looked quite good. The other one was the Irish converted hearse that still had the rear door handles on the doors because they did it so cheaply that they left the doors in place with the door handles and just welded up the door shuts.
Yeah.
And that was hilarious. But you get oil on you get bits of some tyre particles.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. It was great.
It was the noise and everything else, and the atmosphere there was like nothing else I've ever been to. It was an amazing time, and of course, if the racing had been a little bit, I don't know, longer, because it all finished really quickly.
It always does.
It finished really quickly. They had sort of grand finale into Destruction Derby, and they sort of combined about 5 races sort of together. But it was really good. I think Banger Racing is some of the most entertaining motorsport you can possibly watch. I mean, that's not even participating, but just watching it. It's really entertaining. Actually watching it, particularly with
it's fantastic being the other side of the other side of the fence.
Yeah, as well. Yeah, but seeing some of the best ever cars ever in Banger Racing, which is Mark 1 and Mark 2 Granadas. I know Series 1 to 3 XJs are also very good.
Yeah.
There's Lexus LS 400s are good.
Yeah.
And then of course in the smaller engine cars, the P10 Primeras and the Bluebirds and the 3, 4, 5 Cortinas are also very good.
Yeah.
But obviously Mark 1 and Mark 2 Granadas are just like the banger car, aren't they? Really?
Yeah, the Phillips screwdriver for racing really with it. Just good.
Which is good. Here we go. Right. The rather uneventful event of Stickman. Hope there's some good fortune in the near future. Thank you. Very admirable of you to give us detail on this insight of what's going on. I think it's both of us that.
Yeah.
Paulie Arturi says, how does Mr. Coleman rate the Jaguar XJ40 but not the 2.9?
The 2.9 XJ40 is the best of the bunch out of all of them.
But don't they have premature timing chain wear?
No.
They don't. Okay. How many of you guys you had, sir?
I've got a few. My dad, my old man, did a lot of worked for Jaguar for many years, and he did a lot of drivetrain development and the top secret stuff out in the Arizona desert, in the cold climates in Kiruna in Sweden, Toronto in Canada, Timmins, all over the place. And one of the best cars that they didn't have any mechanical failures with and didn't have to alter anything throughout its development through to production was the XJ40 2.9. And they did nearly 700,000 miles of constant testing on the XJ40 2.9, and the only thing it needed in all of that was a water pump. And there's still not anymore, but back in the day when I used to do a lot more of that in the garages, there was a company, a taxi company that run a fleet of XJ40 2.9s, and they had all had 5, 6, 7, 800,000 miles on them with manual gearboxes, and they used to come in for a service every 8, 9, 10 weeks, and they just needed an oil filtering change and the occasional set of brakes, and never had a cylinder head off one, never had gearboxes out, and they're just fantastic. And that's one of my favourite Jaguars is the XJ40 2.9, because it's literally half of the V12 engine with a very, very thin rocker cover. It just looks like the V12 out of an XJS or an XJ40 that's literally been cut in half down the middle, and it's sat in there. It's an unstressed engine, it's over square, and it'll just keep going and going and going and going.
Yeah, but not the fastest XJ40.
They're not the fastest.
You get an XJR, couldn't you?
Yeah, you can have an XJR6 in one of those. You know, but I've got a lot of time for the XJ42.9, and I think they're fantastic.
Yeah. You know, people have been asking me to get hold of an XJ40 for ages. This is a very good one. Montego Maestro Metro Appreciation Club. We like Metros much as we do. Isn't it, cool?
We do, yeah.
We like those. Apparently, the Montego van der Pla with a beige leather interior is now on the road. Yes, I know the exact one that this gentleman means as well. I do like a nice beige leather interior. And
I'm not overly struck on beige leather interiors. I'll just put that out
that's too bad for you, Mr. Coleman, because they are the best. This is a very good question as well, Mr. Coleman.
Who is it from?
It's from Agent Barry, the guy from SETI Alpha 5. Rate your favourite 007 film and novel, please. I know what mine are, but I'll let Mr. Coleman answer this first.
I can. The amount of people that ask me this question, and I can never ever decide. And for me, Roger Moore was the best Bond, bar none. Closely followed by Sean Connery. I do wish Timothy Dalton to give it a few more goes because he's a fantastic actor. But my two favourite Bond films and novels are, and I like them both equally because they're both fantastic, is Moonraker and A View to a Kill. Fantastic films.
Yeah. About the novel.
The novel?
Novel, yeah.
Doctor No.
Yeah. The film was very close to the novel. It's not exactly the same because in the novel, Doctor No dies under a pile of guano.
It does.
Which is bird dung.
Yeah.
He dies under a pile of bird dung, which they didn't do in the in the film.
Hilarious.
He dies actually kind of in a kind of like a sort of a bath of liquid in a nuclear reactor.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing about Doctor No, actually, about the film, is that the score is not by John Barry. And one of the strangest things ever, some of you will know this, is that the Bond theme that we know is actually by two people. The basis of it is kind of Monty Norman. He wrote the actual theme for a musical that was never produced called The House of Mr. Biswas. And it goes da 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 da. That is Monty Norman's bit, but da 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 da, and then da 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 da. That is John Barry and his version of it. So the James Bond theme that Monty Norman was originally going to produce, it is actually on the soundtrack of Doctor No, and it goes da 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 da. That's how it goes, and it's not really at all what we'd say. I think basically what happened is someone came along and said to Monty Norman, "Look, your theme's not good enough. We're going to have to do something else." He said, "Well, I've got this piece of music that I haven't used. It's from this musical." And they heard it. It was like, okay, we're going to have to get someone else to arrange that. So they got John Barry to arrange it. And there was a court case in about 2001 as to who had actually written it, because for years the films carried this credit, James Bond theme by Monty Norman. And yeah, I mean, you know, is him. But the version that actually we know, and obviously we know the version with Vic Flick on the guitar, from '62, is very heavily kind of sort of redone by John Barry. So it's kind of both of them, and they went through this lengthy sort of court case for two of them, and John Barry and Monty Norman both sadly are no longer with us. Monty Norman died more recently, I think, but both of them had a very big sort of influence. And the problem is Monty Norman's score. I don't think you've heard this or got to know. It's kind of rubbish. It's sort of dissonant and sort of a bit funny.
Yeah.
The moment John Barry got his hands on the music, incidental music, for Russia with Love, it was an awful lot better. And Men Goldfinger was the film where he had full control over everything. And that was even better.
Andy Hunter looks the double of Goldfinger. Literally the spitting image of him.
Of Gert Frobe.
Gert Frobe.
Gert Frobe.
Spitting image of Gert Frobe.
Yeah, it's funny. Gigi Bang Banging with us, of course. Well, anyway, what on earth have I been talking about? I haven't answered a question. I've been talking about stuff. I'm so sorry. I've not answered the question. I didn't like it when I first saw it. I got into the Bond films when I was a very young person. I think it's about 1994 I first got into them.
My grandpa that got me into them.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a massive phenomenon, both sides of the Atlantic, of course, for a really long time, because the producers were American. Both Saltzman was Canadian, but Cubby Broccoli was American, and obviously Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli, who were both sort of relations of Albert Broccoli in their own way. And I think Michael G. Wilson's like a step cousin or step brother of Barbara Broccoli, I think. But it's always been made generally over here, although some studio scenes were done sometimes in France for Moonraker.
Yeah.
I think it was a tax thing, and then License to Kill was done in studios in Mexico.
Yeah.
But generally they're made over here, and a lot of British actors and things, and so obviously very popular on both sides of the Atlantic. And so my fandom goes back almost 30 years. But my favourite film at the moment on the Majesty's Secret Service. I think the way that film is made, the music of the film is astonishing. It's probably John Barry's best score. Dinah Rigg from The Avengers is maybe the best Bond girl ever. I don't know, possibly. George Lazenby. The thing is with him, and it's a very fascinating watch, with a documentary film that he sort of contributed to a few years ago, where he talked about the story of how he'd become Bond and things like that, and they reconstruct it from the early days of him being in Australia. And the way he got it, the sort of guile that man had, he was a used car salesman amongst other things, and a model, and he managed to just sort of get away with it. He got away with so many things, and if he just decided to stay one more film rather than take the advice of his agent, who said, "Oh, James Bond's going to be over in a couple of years. Nobody wants to watch films like that anymore. They want to watch Easy Rider." And
Easy Rider was...
then there's this story of Harry Saltzman, I think it was, opening up this like briefcase of money and saying to George Lazenby at the end of one Majesty's Service, "Here is your advance. And here's a contract for, I think it was 6 films," and him pushing the suitcase of money back towards him, saying, "No, I'm not doing it." And then he also kind of made the premiere of on Majesty's Service a bit rubbish, because he decided to grow his hair long and his beard long, because he didn't want to do it anymore. He was contracted to do it, but he just sort of to annoy them. And after that, he made a film called Universal Soldier in 1971, which is one of the strangest films I've ever seen. It's got a very nice Reliant Scimitar in it, but it's about mercenaries and gun running, and Jermaine Greer is one of the leads. And it's a very peculiar film. It's a film that his agent he wanted to make, but he could have done Diamonds Are Forever instead. He would have been sort of okay. I mean, he's a bit rough in the first film, but it was his first major acting role, apart from being in a Fry's chocolate advert. So you can excuse it, but like you watch the fights that he does, and Peter Hunt, who was an editor for a long time of the films, was asked to direct it, and he did a superb job. Like everything else in the film is just superb. It's by far the best film in that way. It's just that it was George Lazenby's first film, and kind of you can tell. And so I think for me that's the best. It's had a bit of a resurgence amongst the sort of Bond community in the last few years. The novel's also actually, I've read the novel of that. So at the moment I'll say that. But who's the best actor to play him? I think is probably Sean Connery. But who's my favourite actor to play him? It's probably Roger Moore, because they're two different things.
Yeah.
And you watch Sean Connery, particularly the early ones, the first 3 films.
Thunderball's a fantastic film.
Yeah, it's a little bit on the long side, Thunderball.
Yeah.
The music, though, again, is just...
brilliant.
It's superb in that. Car Chase is a bit disappointing because it doesn't last very long. No. You just like... They were going to film it on an open part of the M1, but they had to do it in Silverstone. And you could tell they're in Silverstone. And they blow up this Ford Fairlane, I think it is. For some reason, it's the one with the retractable electric hardtop they used. I don't know why. And it's just not really long enough. It's not really kind of, it's not really sort of, that It's sort of exciting. But anyway, bring on with some comments now. I think we've answered that question quite completely, Mr. Cole.
Yeah.
Steve says, I'd love to have a classic car, nothing special, but have no drive anywhere to keep one, and renting a space is just too costly for short term. This is the problem actually with them, because if you have an old car and you want to keep it outside, it sort of deteriorates quite quickly when you do that. And actually, that's one of the things with the car that that I've just bought and I'm talking about. We're going to have to actually store that for the first time ever.
Yeah.
I've never personally owned a car just in a garage.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to have to do that with that one. That is a big thing. But it's really difficult to buy. I mean, I've shown repeatedly over the past 4 years that actually loads of classics can be bought for no budget reviews money. Even now, loads of Maestro and things like that come up for no budget reviews money, for example. It's not really just the cost of the car, it's the cost of servicing it and looking after it. Okay, we better get through a bit more quickly. Simone from the President says, Steve, I have a Cortina. Yes, you do. We've seen your Cortina. Mark III estate. They're quite rare, aren't they, in Mark III estates? Amo L says, I'm really enjoying the chat, just looking at all the comments and opinions, editing and overrated. But you are seeing Seabrook about that. He wants to edit on his phone again, so he's been doing all this game a lot longer than we have, and he just wants to go back to editing on a phone, so that's all. What can I say? Simone says, do you think Festival Exceptional and other shows should have best and worst of show? It's not really, there can't be a worst in show. I don't think there can be.
Yeah.
Not really. Someone said to me as well in one of the comments, it's like, what was your least favourite kind of car of the day without giving anything away? It's like, the thing is, that would give it away if I said it. You have to sort of give it away when you say it, so that's not really possible. Here's a question for you, Mr. Collins. Henry Hull 8538. I would love to own and do up a Range Rover Classic at some point. Do either of you have an experience on these? I think Mr. Coleman does. Apart from the Bush's A-frame and fuel pump, what else should I look out for to change?
Chassis.
Yep.
Transfer case if it's an early one. V8 engines, normally worn out and tired in those if it's an early one. The later one, soft dash, not too bad. Where the aluminium panels bolt to the bulkhead. Awful lot of stuff. An awful lot of stuff. Drop me a line on my channel and I'll give you a list. That'll be easier.
Yeah, that's loads of things there. This is an interesting one. Amo L again. Regarding Mr. Coleman's comment about which car should have been chosen as the winner, he also thinks it should have been from it's not a car necessarily that was built in Britain. He's just saying it should be registered in Britain.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't possibly say about that.
That's a question.
Which car should have been chosen as the winner? Out there, that was on UK plates. Well, with the Metro one, didn't it?
Yeah.
The Metro.
Metro was running
and the Baleno was.
My car there, which for me, which I should have adjusted just out of pure unexceptionalness, was the Yugo.
Yeah. The Sana.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's currently the only one on the road.
Yeah.
There's obviously other Sanas out there. We know about those, but I mean that's one. There's loads of things in there I really liked. The Renault 16 was amazing. The Suzuki Alto was amazing.
My car on the show last year was that Mazda 929.
Yeah, that was great, wasn't it? The Mitsubishi Galant, actually the chap who owns that has said I can have a go in that, which is really nice of him. And of course the Baleno, which some of you know is coming out probably later this week. You'll see that review on my channel. That was amazing. Because that's just. I don't see them anymore. I mean, they're not great cars, the Balenos, but they're just very interesting to see, particularly the saloon one. Stuart says to Classics, I have the money and the time to get a classic car, just know to keep anything. Well, it's always a way, isn't it? And storage and that sort of thing. Darren says, I love my XJ40. Only criticism is the horrendous mineral oil hydraulic shocks.
Yeah.
Which, like many, ask what for coilovers. Oh, there we go. Henry Hole 8538. Let's talk about the novel of Goldfinger. I love the Pool Aston Martin DB2 Mark III. Yep. No, those. I think it's one of them in the Birds film, wasn't there? There's one of those. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's the same colour as well. It's a silver one. The only time Aston features in novels is Goldfinger. I think so actually. Yeah, I think so. Paulie Artillery says, I'm sorry to sound like Roger Moore in A View to a Kill getting out of the car. We know about that noise because Mr. Manny from Matty's Cars dictates that when I get in and out of cars that only have 2 doors, that I have to sound like Roger Moore's stunt double in The View to a Kill, because that's what we have to do. Henry Hall 8538. The reason Bond chose an Aston over a Jaguar because it more suited his cover as a gentleman touring Europe.
Yeah.
Possibly. Mark Passard says, I agree with Darren. My G-Plate XJ40 Sovereign, but I drove my A2000, the loveliest car I've ever owned. I only replaced it because I had a 4th child. Yeah, you can't. There's no space for 4 children in though. Jake Lewis says 180. Can't remember.
Dartboard.
Oh right, yes, of course. Mr. Collins might go to darts. The rather uneventful Adventures of Stickman says Bond chose an Aston because Streetwise had been created. Of course, he was chosen Streetwise had it been created.
Is that Rover 25 or the Tupperware over it?
Yes, Mr. Coleman's words, not mine. Hooked Classics says, what is your favourite Daniel Craig Bond film?
None of them, because they're not Bond films, they're action films.
Mr. Coleman has some opinion about that. Gosh, I can't decide whether it's
Casino Royale's good, I'll give you that.
Casino Royale's
Yeah.
probably the best one. Mr. Coleman and I, when we saw No Time to Die, were just like, what on earth happened at the end? Like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
You just can't.
Yeah. That was hard work watching that as well.
It was really like emotional towards the end.
Was.
I mean, like, I remember at the end they're in the Aston Martin V8 from Living Daylights, and there's Leia Seydoux sort of driving and talking to her daughter about him, and just like, but
he's gone.
He's gone. He's dead. They killed him. Like, you can't do that. Can't do that.
Yeah.
I was like, what are they going to do next? I know that Barbara Broccoli could go like, oh, we don't know what we're going to do, and all sort of thing. And all I hear in this Bond fandom is just like endless speculation of who they're going to choose.
I'd like to be played. I think I'd make a good James.
I'm sure you would, Mr. Coleman. You have many talents, don't you? Agent Barry says, the guy from SETI Alpha 5 says, for record, From Russia with Love's my favourite movie. Yeah, a lot of film critics think that's the best one. I understand why. There's some really kind of good scenes in that, like amazing scenes in it. It's not my favourite one, but
I find Live and Let Die a bit awkward to watch. That's a bit weird.
Yeah, it's a bit strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
But Man of the Golden Gun's really weird.
Yeah, so what is it? Cousin Willie got the fastest boat on the whole damn river. Get your belly button, Carl.
Oh gosh. What was the next? Was it Glastron who survived the boats?
Yeah.
Glastron, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. For Live and Let Die. So Barry likes Brush with Love, but favourite film and book. Yeah, I understand that. Timothy Dalton's my favourite actor. I can understand
Timothy
that.
Dalton's fantastic actor. Yeah.
He's really good, particularly in Living Daylights. I'm not so keen on License to Kill because it's a bit too intense for me.
Yeah, and that still is a really good film, that is. But that, to me, was the basis. License to Kill was the basis on how the Daniel Craig's film.
It was. Yeah, it was. It depends what you want, really. Because there's something for everybody with James Bond. I mean, there's even the 1954 version of Casino Royale, if you really want to watch that. And of course the 67 version of Casino Royale, which I have seen, and actually that has some merits of it. They're not merits as a Bond film, but they are merits, if that makes sense of something. DBT says good afternoon. It's good evening, isn't it?
Good evening. Good night.
Good evening, good night, yes. Says, see classic motoring restored a classic Range Rover stop motion. That was taking a while. Agent Barry says, Thunderball is a Vulcan bomber on it. Yes, it does.
It is.
They spent so much money making that film.
Yeah.
So much. It had like more than the budget of the first three films combined, and some more. Like, they spent a lot of money on that film, and the music is good. It looks great. The only thing is the film is quite long. It's quite a long film, that one, and some of the scenes are a bit too long, really. But the chap who did Creature of Black Lagoon, Rico Browning, was really keen, and so was Kevin McClory, who was the man who got involved in the lawsuit of Ian Fleming for ages. He was really keen. It did all the sort of top-notch kind of underwater stuff, and it was for the time top-notch. It just is a little bit sort of slow in some bits, but music for me in that and some of the other scenes, and also Sean Connery, he's on top form again, really. DBT says, any luck of a sale of 460? Not yet, no. Bashter Bishop says, Mr. Colby, you remember that from before? Mr. Colby's looking rather excited here, viewers. He said, it's a very good channel, you're already going to go up. Hopefully that's the case. I haven't seen No Time to Die. I don't know if I'd recommend it or not, really. It's far too early to say about some of these films, whether they're actually any good. Like, stuff like, I don't know, Spectre or No Time to Die has really not had enough time to kind of get in. They're too new to really say if they're any good or not. Simone says, I haven't seen No Time to Die. That's all right. Maybe reenactment if you want to. And she also says, I can't stand Pierce Brosnan. I don't know. I think GoldenEye's quite a good film.
GoldenEye's a fantastic film.
I think he's all right in that. I just think it got worse. I just think the films sort of get worse as they go on.
They do, yeah. GoldenEye's up there.
That's superb.
Yeah.
Die Another Day, I do not want to see again. I have seen it, and in bits it's good. Like, the hovercraft chase is quite exciting. This idea that he's been tortured for all this time, interesting. But then it kind of all, when he gets out of the torture, it all falls apart after that.
Yeah. With the GoldenEye, I've always thought it would be quite funny if Sean Bean would have kept his original Stoke-on-Trent accent, youth, in it. I think that would be quite funny.
Yeah.
But GoldenEye is a fantastic film.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah, exactly. We go. Henry Hole 8538 said the end of No Time to Die was taken from the Only Live Twice Garden of Death. Yes, because the ending of the Only Live Twice in the film is completely different from the book. The Garden of Death. But just about escapes Garden of Death, stuff's only easier. Bash the Bishop says, I can't stand Daniel Craig. Some people can't. This is what people kind of forget. The fandom is sort of saying that he's great, and only there are 2 films that are good and 2 that are bad, and we don't know about No Time to Die really because we don't know yet. But some people just don't like them at all.
No.
But rather than Adventures of Stickman said, I can only apologise for the length of my name. I'm able to change it in a week. Well, you do what you like, sir. We're not here to tell you what your name should be. Mark Passad says, special effects on Thunderball are outstanding. Some of the editing's a bit ropey in that, to be honest. They rushed the ending of that, massively rushed it to get it ready because they spent so long filming it. They didn't have the time to finish it properly. And some of the editing's a bit sort of slapdash and weak, actually, in that. And some of the special effects are great. Some of them aren't. But the film's a massive success and a really big sort of money maker for them. And when you adjust it for inflation, only Skyfall actually came above it, I think. Yeah. It was a huge success at the time. Darren says we'll be in New Orleans in October. We'll be visiting some locations of Live and Let Die. Excellent. James 101 says GoldenEye's great with the tank. Yeah, the tank was, I think, a set that was built at Leavesden, the first film at Leavesden. And I think the Barbie film was done at Leavesden, actually, which I have seen and I won't comment on it.
Ooh.
Yes, I know. Chambers 101 says, Darren likes Bash the Bishop. Bash the Bishop says, Bash the Bishop says GoldenEye's fab. And Paulie Garcia says, oh, my car! Oh! Mr. Coleman, of course, has owned a Renault 11.
Great.
Which have the sort of softest suspension of any car I've ever seen in my life. Stephen Blip says, when I was growing up in the 80s, I thought Roger Moore was James Bond. I didn't know all about the other people who played him until much later on. Well, he was for a whole generation of people. I mean, I know a lot about the Saint television series and the Persuaders. Probably know more about those than I do about the James Bond, to be honest. Yeah. And
Escape to Athena was a good film with him in it as well.
Yeah, he did all sorts of stuff. Yeah. There's an North Sea Hijack and things like that. Yeah. He played against type, and the man who authored himself is a film called Crossplot, which he sort of made just after he made The Saint, and that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
There's other stuff as well. James 101 says the hovercraft chase was Die Another Day in Long Valley and Farnborough. Yeah, it was filmed in Farnborough. That's right, on the Common. Into Classics, so I can't watch GoldenEye. Brosnan's voice is so dull. There are people who said that if you wanted to sort of put together who would be an ideal Bond, and Pierce Brosnan moved to America around 1982 to sort of make his name there. He ended up in Remington Steele. He was married to a lady called Cassandra Harris who appeared in For Your Eyes Only.
She passed away, didn't she?
Yeah, and our Broccoli met Cassandra Harris and Pierce Brosnan on the set of For Your Eyes Only and sort of noted him for future. And in 1986, he almost became James Bond, but he was stuck in this contract with Remington Steele where they made him make these films in like Ireland and things like that. The films were an absolute disaster.
But am I right in saying that Pierce Brosnan's first big film was when he was in A Longer Friday?
Yeah, he was in that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he was in an episode of Professionals, which was filmed in 1980 called Bloodsports. He's a very minor role, but just about that film role paid for his ticket to America. So it's filmed in September 1980. That was. But yeah, Albert Broccoli kind of saw him when we were making For Your Eyes Only, and they thought he might be good in the future. And of course, they tried to make it in '86, but the producers of Remington Steele optioned his contract extension on the final day that they could. He was about to do it, but they had to find somebody else. Of course, in '95 he came, and he was supposed to be equal parts Connery and Moore or something. I think he's very good at GoldenEye. The rest of it stuff I don't know. What's he say? Bashta Bishop says that I thought Roger Moore was a way of life as an Alpha Mayo. Roger Moore is the smoothest man who's ever existed.
Roger Moore's fantastic.
Guy was at the Alpha 5, Benjamin Barry. I reckon they're watching New Professionals over No Time to Die. That's a strong statement there, sir. That means you don't watch either of them. Mark Passad, so I see Barbie and Oppenheimer. So you did do Barbenheimer then. Okay? You did Barbenheimer. See both of them. Paul Otro says, Tim Jones was a great Bond, but could have made GoldenEye even better. That's an interesting statement, isn't it? Right, we've been going for quite a long time, Mr. Coleman. I think we're going to have to call it a day before my MiFi explodes. I think that's probably a good idea. Bash the Bishop, one final time, says, Oppenheimer didn't blow me out of the water on top it should have done. Yes.
There's a new trend going, isn't there? I've told you about with Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
When the countdown happens.
Yes, gaseous emissions, Mr. Coleman. Anyway, I think that's enough for now. Mr. Coleman will work tomorrow and things.
Yeah, we're up at 4:30.
Yes, exactly. So thank you ever so much indeed, everybody, for watching. Watch, of course, today's very vague vlog that was released. You might find it to your advantage. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Like us in the comment below, and we shall see you again soon for more inextricable rambling.
Yes. Take care. Bye.